From JA to UK to LA and everywhere else now, this is a podcast strictly influenced by Jamaican music, brought to you by Eric Kohler and Junor Francis. Well, if you're driving in your car or you're sitting home alone, the Junior entertain you on his microphone. History of LA Ska. Yeah, hear stories from a guest while we all have a blast. From LA to Jamaica, it's in the podcast. The history of LA Ska. Of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. History of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. Of LA Ska. It's the history of LA Ska. One more time, yeah. It's the history of LA Ska.
Recording in progress. Well, welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. I'm your host, Junor Francis, alongside our producer and my good friend, Eric Kohler. Interestingly enough, on this series, we celebrate ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scene in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with legends and modern-day talent, including those working behind the scene to make this show a success. So whether you listen to this podcast series, watch us on YouTube, we want to say an abundance of thanks for your support and your love. And remember, please to subscribe and tell a friend about this series. It's really and truly worth your time. Now, in this episode, we welcome a longtime friend, veteran radio DJ from KROQ and KNAC, artist manager, promoter, writer, and director, and baseball aficionado, Roberto Angotti.
Go on, Junior. Flush it. Eric, reggae nucleus, big up, my brethren. You know, long time.
Indeed.
Innovator.
You know, when Junior, when you mentioned behind the scenes, and Roberto, obviously you're not just behind the scenes, you're in front of the scenes, but we mentioned only some of your accolades, some of your titles.
Yes,
I'm sure
sir.
there's many more, but Roberto, it's a pleasure. I last saw you, it had been many years, but I think at the Don Letts, when he did the thing at the Grand Museum surrounding his Rebel Dread film. That was probably a year and a half ago or so, but it was a pleasure to see you again after so many years.
Yeah, enough respect, man.
Yeah.
You guys have just laid down foundation. And even with this podcast, you're documenting. And what I love is it's come full circle. I was just at the hot tub about a half hour ago, and these youth or high school kids, they were jamming reggae music
Nice.
at the hot tub.
Yeah.
And I said, prophecy fulfilled.
Yes.
We must have done our jobs right.
Yes.
The youth, them,
Mhm.
are living with jam music.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's so
Very
true.
true, man.
It's
Very
so
true.
true.
Very true.
Yeah. Well,
Very true.
Roberto, thank you for joining us tonight. We're gonna take a nice trip down memory lane, and what we really want to try to get across during these questions and conversations with you is to get a sense of you know what the radio landscape, what the music landscape was like, you know, as you were coming up, so to speak, back in the day. And you know, the heyday, so to speak, and obviously your journey along the way with working with artists as a promoter, manager, radio DJ. So, Junior, over to you.
Yes, sir. So you started out at Claremont College as a DJ on KSPC. That was before I arrived here in Southern California. And KSPC is nestled in the heart of Claremont
Right.
College, a very upscale college. The
I
dial
feel
is 88.7 FM. on
The space.
KSPC.
That's right. Reggae Connection.
Mhm.
Every Monday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Junor Francis.
Indeed.
Big up. You understand? Without fail, my man sets you up for the week without hesitation.
True.
And 88.7 FM laying down the foundation for Roberto Rock Reggae. I was 17 years old. I wasn't even
Wow.
18 yet. And I was on the radio. I had my first shift as my freshman, first semester.
Mhm.
And no one would touch the Friday night shift from 9 to midnight because they were all wanting to go, you know, to the keg frat parties.
Right.
But I signed up for that shift. wholeheartedly, Roberto Rock Reggae, because I was deeply inspired by Peter Tosh, who I saw at the Golden Bear in Huntington Beach when I was 15 years old. I had my permit and I drove illegally without somebody over 21 to the concert, right? Because Peter Tosh was opening for the Rolling Stones at the time. And he was playing a big show at Anaheim Stadium.
Yeah.
So he was doing small club shows around that date. So I was anointed. I became a disciple at that point. I was christened. I said, me this, And so I went in high school. I became the treasurer of my high school so that I had all good relationship with the administration, so that at lunchtime I could DJ in the quad and play, you know what I'm saying? And that's when I realized that, when you're at a radio station, you get to hide behind four walls and the request line is your buffer. But when you have an audience in your face, you must command the dance hall. Yes. Otherwise, you'll be chased out of the room, Yeah. And I remember beats per minute. I was introduced to that by a guy named Scorchman, who was a DJ in Orange County. He controlled like the Thunderbird and down at in Newport Beach at the Warehouse. These are places that I eventually went and DJ'd as well and did live reggae.
Yes, we're going to talk about some of those, right?
Like I hosted Sublime there, and I had a beach house on the sand that I had a winter rental at, and the band came to my yard, and then the dog and everybody came in, and they just filled up my fridge full of beer, the 40 ounce of Freedom, and they just got mashed up Rasta. You understand? I said, oh my God, I've done a disservice. How are they going to perform tonight? You understand me? And they just mashed the place up. It just that was just the pre-party. But those guys, Bradley and Sublime, those guys used to listen to Reggae Revolution at KNAC in Long Beach. And they used to call in and make requests so that they could rehearse the tunes. Like War Around the John Shop became Pawn Shop.
Right.
Understand what I'm saying? Wailing
Souls.
Enough respect.
Yeah.
I used to manage Wailing Souls when they were a foursome and put them on the road and drive a 15-passenger van and drive all night because there wasn't enough money for hotels. You know what I mean? And not take any money because I loved what I was doing. Just give me a freaking Dr. Pepper. And I was
so Roberto, let's back up. So when you were at KSPC, how many years did you do your Friday night program? And your Friday night program was Roberto Rock Reggae, right?
Correct. And basically my sophomore year, that's when I got picked up at KNAC, and I was Richard Blade's replacement overnights. He went by the handle of Dick Shepherd. And as you well know, he just got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Congratulations. So I'm like in the shadow of of that star.
Right. So KNAC,
but before KNAC though, maybe with KSPC, were you trained as a DJ or you just went in and
I became training director as a freshman. I was training other DJs.
So where did you get your knowledge?
Where I just was intuitive. I just loved it. I knew how to mix. You understand? I had already DJ'd on the high school circuit level. So I knew, what we were looking at. And segues were the blessing. I would always love to blend in and mix one song into the other and just fade it seamless. and no dead air in between songs.
Okay.
And
So
just tell a story with the music. Let the message and convey a message through the music and have a theme. Every week I would have a theme. And I got schooled quickly because you had Miss Wirewaist,
Right. She
and
was
on
on
KPFK,
KPFK.
who had her style of reggae.
Right.
You had Roger Steffens,
Roger and
Hank Holmes,
Hank
Chuck
Holmes.
Foster on
Right.
KCRW, right?
Yep.
But they are all missing out on the British reggae and ska.
Mhm.
You know, there was a massive void. And I felt that was my responsibility to represent those artists.
Right.
So
Interesting.
Right.
brought on, you know, Pato Banton, you know, Tippa Irie, you know,
Right.
UB40, Oswald, Steel Pulse,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
legitimate reggae, you know,
Right.
and bona fide. So that's what I was going for. That
Right.
So when you were picked up and you joined KNAC's format at that time, and we're talking around what year now?
82 to 85, I was at KNAC. It was
And they
rock
were-
and rhythm, and it was modern rock and classic oldies. So it was like rock of the 80s meets 50s and 60s Elvis, you know, classics, that sort of thing for that older demographic,
Okay.
and then blend in with the new. So all the family could listen to KNAC.
But
It was a
KNAC
brilliant format.
right? No, for sure. But KNAC, did they embrace some of the new wave at the time, or was that what KROQ was doing?
No, KNAC had a 3,000 watt transmitter that on the top of Signal Hill, that if wind would be more than 5 miles an hour, it would knock us off the air. It was like bankruptcy FM, right? The Wright brothers owned KNAC, right? And if you got your paycheck at Friday at 3 o'clock, Rasta, no, you had to run to the bank and be the first in line to cash that Ross clock check in, because there would be by 4:30 no money in the account. It was first come, first serve.
Okay.
You hear me? So
Understood.
you weren't working at KNAC for the money,
Right.
because there wasn't any.
Yeah.
And it was sold out of bankruptcy court to Fred Sands, the Beverly Hills realtor, who left it alone for a year and then had some New York, you know, radio consultants do an assessment of the LA marketplace and saw a massive void for heavy metal, hard rock, not, you know, being played, and tapped into it, and then just quadrupled his advertising as a result of that transformation. But because of that transition, I was able to be picked up by KROQ, you know, because
so
otherwise KROQ, John Logic was playing like 1 or 2 reggae songs in the middle of the night.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they didn't embrace reggae music. They hid me on KROQ on Tuesday nights after midnight, right? I knock on the door, you know, thinking I'm ready to do my show, and Swedish Eagle, you know, answers the door, and, oh, hey, Roberto, yeah, come on in. You know, take the guest mic. So he had the controls, Rasta, and I'm like, whoa, you know, I didn't sign up for this. This is supposed to be my show. And it became like a feature on his show. And I was like, so I just lived for when Swedish Eagle went to freaking Sweden for vacation, because then I got to do the show those 2 weeks of the year by myself. You know what I mean? And it took his, actually, you know, our program director's death for me to get on air prime time. And then I got Sunday, because they're like, what are you doing in the middle of the night? Your show, you know, you need to be on Sunday nights. So they gave me Sunday nights, 6 to 7 p.m.
And
And
what
then
year was that, son? For the record.
and then they get and that from 80, because I signed on from 86 to 92 at KROQ.
Okay.
So what happened is I was given an hour, and then it took another program director being fired for another program director to go, you know what? I enjoyed your show, and I was jamming into Bob Marley at 6:55, and all of a sudden the show is over. And I'm like, so he says, I want to give you an extra hour, So then I got 6 to 8 p.m. So, I had Love Line with the Poor Man and Dr.
Yes, sir.
Drew,
Yes.
then Reggae Revolution, and then Rodney on the Rock.
Right.
So
right.
we were running things on Sunday nights on KROQ. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's when, we were going far with it. However, because we had the wattage, KNAC was an indicator station.
Right.
That meant KROQ was listening to KNAC, what we were playing. And then when a tune became a hit, they started playing it. So we'd have to go 3 or 4 deep on a record just to stay ahead
Wow.
of KROQ. So I really said, I'll never go to KROQ. They're a pirate, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it was a blessing that KNAC went heavy metal.
Well, in your
because
experience,
had they not gone heavy metal, Reggae Revolution would never seen the light of day.
Right. But your experience on KNAC as well, right, really helped you develop as a DJ, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely.
So,
but it was beautiful. KNAC, everything was grassroots. I used to DJ at the Rumble Seat Garage with the Rebel Rockers.
Yes,
and
Rebel
you know what I mean? And then be lucky if I got $50. You know what I'm saying? And then, pay for my gas. And then, Bogarts, and Fender's Ballroom. I started Club Reggae. We had Oswald, down at Bogarts, small club in Long Beach in the Marina Pacifica Mall. Club Reggae was a smaller room at Fender's because Fender's Ballroom was the big punk rock, ska ballroom, all ages. That's where Bradley and Sublime and like No Doubt band members would go to that big ballroom. And then included was it with admission, you could just go down the hallway, and then that's where Club Reggae was. I was in the smaller room. And anyone who paid in to see, Wailing Souls or whatever in Club Reggae, they could walk and go see HR in Bad Brains in the next room.
What time period?
Rasta.
Or
this mid 80s, you know what I mean? Mid 80s going into the 90s.
Right.
Club Reggae was because no one was doing it. No one was hosting the Ika Mountains. The sub. Nobody could. The Boom Shakas. All these groups that were just needed venues. So it was the cry of the people, and then I promoted.
So you introduced reggae to KROQ, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So that was clutch. KNAC was beautiful because we had DJ choices 2 times an hour. We had a format. We had an A bin, a B bin, a C bin, and then we'd have at the 55 break and the 25 break, we'd slide in music from our own collection. So I was hired at KNAC as a new music jock. So I was playing format, but then I'd slide in the selector or, the specials, or madness, or, and anything reggae wise, a Bob Marley, a Steel Pulse, Peter Tosh.
Essentially, you introduced reggae to commercial records.
Commercial radio
in Southern California.
Yeah, enough respect to Makeda Dread because she was down at 91X.
Right, but you were
in San Diego with her transmitter down in TJ that could come up to certain parts. But as far as legitimately, we covered the canvas. KROQ went deep into the valley, into Orange County, into the IE. So that was a critical mass, and it was very important. And people started getting signed, and labels were taking notice because KROQ was embracing reggae music and ska music.
And since we're talking about that time period and some other bands and live events, on the festival side of things, right? You had Bob Marley starting, you had Reggae Sunsplash, right? The tour that had started right around the latter part.
Remember Cal State Dominguez Hills, the Velodrome,
Right,
major hub for all these Jamaican artists who were coming in.
Right.
The Yellow Man and Fathead, things like that you would not normally see.
Yes.
Yes.
True.
Vintage artists, and I go back down, enough respect to UB40, because those guys, they allowed me full access to them in their recording studio during the making of the Jeffrey Morgan album.
Yeah.
Right?
Tell us about that.
Yeah, elaborate.
So basically, every day I was in the studio videotaping the sessions. And one day, those guys said to me, "Hey, Roberto, you really need to go to this pub. There's this audition happening for this traveling roadshow sound system. And these different artists are going to be showcasing their auditioning." And that's where I actually saw Pato. He came out. He had Elo Tosh got a, Toshiba. It was a big tune produced by Rankin Roger, right?
Right.
And so I come back to the studio, blown away. I'm like, guys, you would not believe what I saw. This guy, Pato Bonton, just tore it up. He played to my Super 8 camera like I was MTV. He was gonna mash up the telly, and you know what I mean? And so I told the band this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's our mate. We love him. He's on, Bag of Rhythm, I Got You, Babe." You see on the flip side of that, Chrissy Hine.
Yep, I have that right.
Hip-hop lyrical robot, Pato. Big tune. And so the next day, Mickey Virtue, the keyboardist, shows up at the studio, and he gives me a 12-inch Fashion Records, Pato Bonton, the boss, right? And the business card, and it said Grantley Haynes, GT Haynes Management. And GT was managing both Pato and Tippa Irie at the time. So I reached out to GT and I said, "We need to bring them to America."
Yes.
So I became the American representative management for Pato Bonton and Tippa Irie, and helped get them signed to Primitive Man Records, which was a subsidiary of IRS Records, and land their first record deal. And so, like I did for the Wailing Souls, throwing about 12 Rastas, Freedom Fighters, and Burn Eye, and the Wailing Souls as a quartet, and an 8-piece, and Kip, remember her on guitar? Female Itzy, you remember her, right?
Yes.
Freedom Fighters, bad. They used to call her, and Lester Far Eye, Small Axe, right? But when they backed up Wailing Souls, they were the Freedom Fighters. So we took them up and down the coast, and with Wailing Souls, you got a 15-passenger van and a U-Haul. You know what I mean? I was doing.
And we're still talking 80s. We're still talking 80s.
Doing it.
80s,
1980s.
1980s.
Yes. Absolutely. So, I was doing all this. And so getting back to UB40, right? They had this Fathers album that they were doing, right? And they asked me, my opinion. I said, you must get, Winston Groovy, right? And so he did Please Don't Make Me Cry, which they made a big tune, right? So I brought Winston into the studio, and then he did his part covering a UB40 tune. It was a reversal. And the beauty of that story is that UB40 gave all these founding fathers from Jamaica money that they had never seen before. They had been ripped off by all these producers in the past.
Right.
And UB40 Publishing made sure that
Right.
the artist, the original, got their money. And you would not believe the stories that have been told of all these founding fathers, you know, that, you know, were able to get back their health or get their house back.
Right.
But that's sort of to get their lives back.
Yes.
So, you know, and I helped with the Oraka Best record label. Brian Travers and Ali Campbell launched a label. So I worked with a guy named Nashai from Jetstar. He was a brethren of UB40s and myself, and we collaborated and put together Oraka Bessa 1 was the first project. And I actually wrote the UB40 dancehall album liner notes from my trip to Jamaica. And I got to meet all these dancehall artists who were writing these UB40 rhythms,
I remember.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, from that, I was able to write fashion records. I did a compilation for fashion, a lovers rock compilation, a dance hall compilation, you know, and I just always felt like I needed to get in production. So, you know, I did this production, the Nancy Reagan re-election remix featuring Blue Rhythm Band, the first white American reggae band to play reggae Sunsplash. And they did this tune, Nancy Reagan, that the Jamaicans loved, you know. And so when Ronald Reagan was going to get reelected, you know, we're in the heart of Orange County. I wanted to be like a rebel. I'm like, oh, this can't happen.
Right.
They're going to spend $18 million on this gala in DC. Well, the famine in Africa was at its peak.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there was like the reggae starvation ska single. Remember that was out there.
Right.
So what I did is I got Rankin Rogers' attention. He was with General Public at the time, and he was playing at the Palace in Hollywood. And I talked to Roger after the gig. I said, Roger, man, we need to do something. We have to have a you did, Stand Down Margaret, right?
Yeah.
You got to do something for Ronald Reagan, right? So he was all about that for a protest song. So I drove him to Chick Corea's studio in Hollywood Hills after the gig.
Yeah.
And I had gone to Kansas City and picked up the reel to reel of Nancy Reagan, which like was 50 pounds. You know, I had to go to Kansas City, right? Get the thing, bring it back, put it on the machine, and Roger just freestyled, just on the rhythm, right?
Right.
And I was just like, whoa, what did I just see happen, right? And so, and David Lindley was out there like dubbing it up. You know, he was with El Rayo X and Jackson Brown, and he lived in Claremont. And I met him in Claremont in his driveway one day when I was like walking from school.
Right.
And I was like, are you David Lindley? And said, yeah. And so I told him what I was doing, and he and his daughters, you know, they were called the Casual Girls. They used to listen to me. They were all girl reggae band.
Wow.
They were like 10, 11 years old at the time. And they used to listen to me on KSPC, so they knew who I was. And so I needed no introduction.
Right.
So I said to Lindley, I said, hey, you know, come on to the studio. I'm going to bring Rankin Roger there. And he was just like blown away. So it was just total magic right there.
Wow.
So that wasn't the end of it. So General Public was playing later at the Madison Square Garden in New York, right? So I said, you know, to Roger after I played him the ones that he had done freestyle, he goes, oh, Roberto, he goes, man, if I would just have a little bit more time, I could really, you know, knock this jam out well. And I'm like, cool, no problem. When you're in New York, you know, I'll arrange another session. So I talked to Blue Rhythm Band, And I said, hey, if you had to work with any Jamaican producer, you know, in the world, who would you want? And they're like, Maxie McKenzie from Channel 1. He lives in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I put an all-point bulletin out for Maxie McKenzie, right? I went to like Jaw Life Studios over there in Brooklyn, right? Over there. And I was just like, and you know, I met Trevor Saw and Barrington Levy in the record shop there while I was trying to track down Maxie McKenzie. So finally we track him down, man. And he just shows up at this session in New York, and Roger just mashed it up again. So like there's 4 different versions of the Nancy Reagan re-election remix. So what we did is I pressed up like 1,000 copies of the record, including KROQ. And I gave each station a copy, and I said, on Inauguration Day at 6 p.m., while this gala is going on, please play this song.
Nice.
So I got like cooperation from a majority of the stations to play it at the same on the night of the gala as a protest.
Yeah.
And so that's truly, I had to live up to the name Reggae Revolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And ask Pato where he came up with the name for his band.
The Reggae Revolution.
Ask Eddie Marley where he wrote that tune, Reggae Revolution, which then later became one of my theme tunes.
Yes.
So
right.
we truly had an imprint on, you know, bands like No Doubt and Sublime.
Yes.
You know, because Miguel called me a teacher. And ironically, I am a teacher. That's what I do by day.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I teach high school. So he says I was educating Brad and them with the music because I had the pipeline for 7-inch. I would get Jamaican 7-inches sent to me, and I was playing them fresh. And I get stuff from Jetstar in London sent to me. So I was just a trendsetter and being the first guy to play stuff. And then after it got commercial success, then people signed up these artists, and then they got major label deals.
Right.
But we had to first test the market through
Yes.
KNAC, which was an indicator station.
Right.
And then when I had the wattage at KROQ.
Yeah.
You know?
So when you had Reggae Revolution on KROQ, how did the your playlist evolve as like if my memory serves me correct, in the latter part of the 80s, right? You had the emergence of some dancehall, right?
You know, remember Shabba Ranks posters
huge.
were everywhere.
Super Cat.
I have them
right?
in my garage, man. I could not get rid of them. They're Shabba, big business, trailer load.
Yeah. Right.
Big.
Right.
This stuff, you know, and even Wailing Souls with Shark Attack,
Huge.
you know, with Red Fox,
Yep.
boom tune,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
the KROQ picked up on that, you know, and they would like anything that had commercial success, you know, Maxi Priest, Wild World.
Oh my God.
You know, we had the
Yes.
Oswald, Don't Turn Around.
Right.
All these are tunes that were premiered on Reggae Revolution and became staples on the KROQ playlist.
regular rotation. Right.
Mhm.
I remember that.
So
I mean,
we'd be remiss not to bring in Courtney Minor.
yeah, Culture Beat.
What,
when you
Culture
were-
Beat Records?
Yeah,
How
right.
you mean? Hard to Go Gone,
Talk
Long
yeah, tell us
Beat,
about it.
Original, and then moving to LA.
Right.
You know, never sold out his soul. You know, that Bretta, you know, Sublime, those guys used to hang out. That
Right.
was in their hood. Those guys were getting, because they would only listen to me once a week. They could go to Courtney's shop and get a lesson every day. You understand me?
Yeah.
So it was a natural, you know, to have people like Culture Mind, you know, Culture Beat, man, those guys were like originating. And HR, you know, he hung out in Long Beach too,
Right.
you
Yes.
know, and Sublime, they aspired to be the next Bad Brains. Do you know what I mean? You can ask Eric
Right.
Basie, you know,
Yes.
he'll to this day, he still praises Bad Brains. And they just, did a benefit for HR recently.
Right.
Yeah.
I
You
missed
know?
that one. Mhm.
Yeah.
So they are true to form. But I have to give props to Mickey Virtue from UB40, a guy who rarely did interviews, was always behind the scenes, but was truly a reggae soldier. And Astro, may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Indeed.
He really legitimized, UB40 as a true reggae act because, he used to listen to the fast style of rapping that Saxon originated,
Yes.
Papa San in Jamaica, what they used to listen to, Levi and Tippa Irie, Daddy Colonel, those guys. In fact, that's the first time I met Mad Professor, was at a Saxon dance
Oh,
in
yeah.
the middle of the night,
Yes.
and lo and behold, I would write liner notes for Maccabee and Mad Professor, and then Sublime a couple years ago released dub mixes by Scientist
Right.
and Mad Professor that I wrote the liner notes
Oh,
for
no.
that as well.
Yeah.
So they always look to,
Yes,
these producers.
And it's interesting because you touched on right there two bands in UB40 and Sublime that were big gateways, right? For me, UB40 is the reason that I became such a huge reggae fan, and then going deep into to your earlier point, finding out all these songs that UB40 covered, right? And we know the also the influence that Sublime had on so many fans, and kickstarted an entire subgenre of type of reggae, right? So it is fascinating just to talk about the importance of those two bands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those guys, they just homogenized, they took their influences and brought the surf and skate element of
Mhm.
Southern California
Yes.
to the forefront and just brought it up so that it could be identifiable to our youth culture,
Absolutely.
digestible.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And even this latest project that Miguel has with Stick Figure, you've heard that.
Oh man, great tune. Yeah.
Right? Can we
Yeah.
play that? Can we play that? Can you have that on YouTube and so you could kind of see how, 40 years later, Miguel has still that Sublime sound and brought the current 2024 mix, but has that signature stamp of
Yeah.
Sublime.
Yeah, that
You know?
the feel like that song. Yeah, no, love that. And and Miguel obviously is continuing, through Long Beach Dub All Stars, which is an extension of Sublime as well. No, massive for sure.
So, in your opinion, Cali reggae as we now know it, when did it evolve? Or evolve? I suppose that's it.
Naturally, as far as timelines, they just, Slightly Stupid.
Yeah,
Those
right.
guys are an extension
Yes.
of Sublime. Bradley, took them under
Yes.
his wing, you know what I mean?
Right.
And actually, my brethren, Carlos Culture, may
Yes.
he rest in peace in San Diego, he and I put on the first Slightly Stupid concert in Ocean Beach. And that was at the suggestion of Miguel. He's like, Roberto, I got these guys, they want to get out there. So we paved the way, there. So Miguel, he will also cite UB40 as a major influence. And I actually brought my whole collection of UB40 to his house, and he did like a B-side remix of all those versions, you know. I actually had a project with all the Kali Reggae artists writing UB40 rhythms.
Oh,
And it's in the can. But with Astro's passing, the project pretty much went downhill from that point on. Because Ali Campbell, I love him like a brother, right? But he has about a 5-minute attention span, right? And you got to convey that message within the 5 minutes, and that's it. And he'll like forget things just because he's just an artist. You know what I mean? An artist doesn't need to take on management. That's why he has management. But so like, to make a long story short, I have a wicked Kali Reggae album with UB40 with Miguel that's just on the shelf because we can't get management to take it. And if Astro was still alive, it would have come to fruition. But
so when you say Kali Reggae, how do you define that or distinguish that from reggae that you used to play back in the day?
It's a natural progression of what roots reggae interpreted by the California surf skate fanatic. That's basically the way I see it. And they just bring, you know, their glorification of herb, you know what I mean? Because listen, I did 2 interviews with Peter Tosh. Roger Steffens was kind enough to set one up for me in Hollywood when he was on EMI Records, and I got like an hour plus of Peter Tosh's time. And actually, Robert Hilburn from the LA Times had to wait until our interview was done because Roger and said, Peter's like, no, man, we're not done yet. You know, this youth has, you know, is an educated youth. So he gave me like an hour and a half. The LA Times had to wait like an extra half hour after my interview. And that interview is in the KSPC archives, okay? And now if it ever gets replayed, that's up to KSPC. But I had a bunch of interviews I did with Steel Pulse, a bunch of artists when I was at KSPC. And then, who knows? Who knows? And then I did another interview 2 weeks before Peter was shot in his house. I was at his house doing the interview. And this is when he was distraught with the record company and being ripped off and poisoned by, you know, the music industry and not getting his share. Wow. So really, he was just a rebel at that point. But I was lucky because, you know, Santa and, you know, wasn't so lucky. He was there 2 weeks later in the same yard that I was interviewing Peter. You know, I could have been gunned down that day. I just happened to be there 2 weeks prior. Right. So Peter, you know, and I have a story I'm going to tell you. Not many people know this, but I had a hold at the Long Beach Arena. I had the mayor of Long Beach who was going to proclaim Peter Tosh Day, right? And I went to Central Park with a contract to Peter Tosh's house with my dad, who was going to finance the whole thing. Wow. And all Peter needed to do was sign the contract. And you know what? I would have saved Peter's life because the day he was shot and killed was the day we were going to do the concert. Unbelievable.
Wow.
But there was some funky stuff going on at Peter's yard that you could talk to Roger Steffens about that I feel uncomfortable disclosing.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, because, you know, Peter was married to a woman who I think was, you know, probably responsible for his demise and death. And And if he would have signed that contract, Peter would be alive today and fully would have been happy to play. He would have got the key to the city in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And serious, I never told that story publicly, but that just
Yeah.
I don't know, it struck a chord with Peter Tosh. He
Yes.
just had his imprint because he's the one who, you know, brought me on board, you know, and I saw him at 15 years
Sure,
of age, and it came full circle. And I was like, I need to give back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I had the Long Beach Arena on hold,
That would have been
everything contract
yeah.
in hand. If it would have been signed that night, it wasn't signed. It never came back to us. And he went to Jamaica and he was shot and killed.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's just,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just
Uh,
the universe, just how the ball bounces, man.
True. So Roberto, you mentioned on the promoter side of things. Talk about some of the other shows that you did throughout the 90s. One that I will always be thankful for. I'm thankful for you and to you for many reasons, but I specifically remember, Roberto, Culture at the warehouse in Newport Beach. And when Reggae Nucleus was around, Ireno and I got to interview Joseph Hill in his hotel room, thanks to you. And I just remember, I think that might have been the first time I saw Culture. And it was just magical. And I know that there are others, but so talk about the promoter side of and some of the other shows that you did.
Well, what was happening was we were creating a demand for these artists on the radio. And so, and there were no promoters out there promoting ska and reggae. So I had to wear that hat as a manager of these bands and get them gigs and then negotiate with clubs to get, you know, these bookings. Or if the venue didn't know how to promote reggae, I would just four-wall the place. I did the Twinkle Brothers at the Roxy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, it was a labor of love. I lost money on it because the band, you know, didn't pay me back, but because we'll pay you back, you know, that sort of thing. But I love them, Norman Grant and Ralston Grant.
Sure.
They probably don't remember who managed them, who I made the agreement with, but you know what I mean? I lost so much money in reggae music, but that wasn't my goal to really make any money. I didn't care. I just wanted to promote reggae music.
Right. And you did a fantastic job.
You know what I'm saying, Junor? You know, you've done it relentlessly. You've gone to Mexico. You've done shows in foreign countries. We've been ripped off in Mexico. We still perform. We did a show with Los Pericos in Mexico City. The promoter took off with the money, and they're like, Los Pericos, like, Otto, you still want to play? Like, yeah, man, there's an audience out there. You know what I'm saying?
So promote the take off with your money.
I know. Yeah.
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 See that. Seriously, I mean, whatever. You get your deposit, and then that's it. You know.
Right. So let's go back. So once your time at KROQ ended, there, you and this gentleman here did something that was incredibly groundbreaking.
I believe so. What I did, I moved up to the Bay Area, right? And I was up in Central California. I was at KCBX in San Luis Obispo. I had a job there 5 days a week, and I was doing a reggae show there. And then up in, I was helping, we had
a commercial station? Commercial station?
Yeah, doing commercial station Live 105.
Oh, right, yes.
Right?
Yep.
They're the Dread Flash. And so was up there. So I came back to the Bay Area, from the Bay Area to LA, and I went to KROQ, and I said, hey, I just wanted you to know I'm back in town. So, you know, they're like, well, you know, we own Reggae Revolution, so you can't take the name. I'm like, okay, no worries. I said, I just want you to know that I'm coming back to town and I'm going to be going head to head with your, station. I'm going on 6 days a week, prime time, 3 o'clock reggae. And they're like, okay, well, thanks for letting us know. But I gave them the opportunity basically to hire me because I was back in the area, but they weren't having it. You know what I mean? Because they were just, it seemed to be just, they were into like just the whole, I mean, honestly, talk to Poor Man about Love Line, right? That was his show. And then they took Love Line, the name, and they took that commercially. And here's Reggae Revolution. That's my show, right? And then they took Reggae Revolution and
you brought that from KNAX. You brought it from
KNAC, right? And all of a sudden now they own it because they're and I wasn't going to go fight them in court. Reggae is about freedom of expression, right? So I wasn't going to fight him for a name. So I said, okay. So I'm calling up my brethren, Junor Francis, because I know he's a warrior and he never gave up the fight. And he's the same guy that I knew from back in the day. He never sold his soul out, didn't do drugs, was a hardworking man, just like myself. I said, brethren, listen, we're going to do the first national daily reggae show in prime time. And he said, what? And I said, yes, my brethren, 3 o'clock reggae. And so we get Jamaican style out of Newport Beach, give us a bumper sticker that got massive appeal. I was on every bumper sticker in Orange County. 3 o'clock reggae. It said everything, 96.7. That's all you needed to know. People were tuning into it, right? Tower Records, Red Stripe Beer. All these people were coming on board. We're doing live remote broadcasts from Tower Records with Burning Spear, Yellow Man, Mystic Revealers, Wailing Souls at 3 p.m. And a whole heap of people rammed the store. You understand? There's hundreds of people coming out and said, radio works, John O. You know what I'm saying? And the proof was in the pudding. And, Red Stripe and everyone's like, yeah, man, where do we sign? So we're getting signed. We're going, Junor and I are like going nonstop.
Okay, so we're
live
talking
remote broadcasts.
I think 93, right? Was that 93 somewhere around there?
Yeah, and it's 96.7 FM, KWIZ. Their signal was in Santa Ana. You see it when you drive by the 5 freeway. It's still that tower by the Orange County Register, right there. I think it's Main Street.
Right.
So anyway, we were taking it to new heights. And so we're ready to go on our second year of broadcast. We're ready to sign agreements with Tower Records, with Red Stripe Beer, because they want to see you survive for a year before they're going to sink their money into it.
Yes.
And then what happens? The station is sold to the Little Saigon radio network, and they go Vietnamese broadcasting 24/7. So we couldn't even buy our time anymore. And I said, I'm done, because I was at 91X before that in San Diego with Makeda Dread. Before I came back, when I came back to the LA area, since, I was like getting my feet wet, building, momentum once again. I was like, okay, I got this, lending credibility. And I was okay, I'm ready. And then I was doing a show at 92.5 with David Bin in San Diego, the long snapper for the San Diego Chargers.
Oh, wow.
And so that was another station that I worked at. So I was still, waving the flag, that time. But basically, Junor and I were before our time. And we were like,
so I remember telling Roberto, there is no way we can sit in this studio and do a traditional broadcast. We have to take it to the street.
And you
Yep.
did.
Yes, and you said you could get a remote broadcast. I mean, I have no idea how it was done. You said, you could get it. We could make it happen. Said it's virtually impossible to sit in the studio and make this happen.
It was magic. Brethren, I look back and I say to myself, those were some golden years because it was all do it yourself, man.
Right.
We were salesmen, we were broadcasters, we were engineers. We did it all.
And we trained some people as well.
So
Brian, good, yes.
Ryan and Eddie Dreddy, enough respect to those guys.
Working
Nobody
for
ever got
nothing,
paid.
devotion, dedication.
Absolutely. I mean, that
We should
was
also thank some people like Culture Beat, because he allowed us to broadcast from 7th Street and also from when he moved to Los Angeles. We use his facility. Boris gave us the first live Boris Mills. Said, come and do the first live broadcast from here.
Tasty Fish Market.
Yeah, Thursday,
yeah, and it comes from idea. Never underestimate the power of the mind.
Yes.
If you can dream it, you can do it.
Yes.
And that's basically what we wanted to do. And I hope that Miguel from Sublime and Pato, will one day be able to share their stories with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Because they have so much to offer. And Rankin Roger and Pato, they were inseparable. And I bonded strongly with Rankin Roger and brought him out to the Catalina Splish Splash Festival, with no infrastructure there, no power, no stage, had to bring a barge with motorhomes that were backstage, truck beds for stage, generators, you know what I mean? And then had to, charter all the boats because you had to buy all the transportation taking your concert goers to the festival.
Yeah.
So you had to buy all the tickets there. You know what I mean? And I remember like the Untouchables drummer, who was the drummer, I think later for Eddie Money, he got seasick. So I had to fly him, Mikey Dread, Rankin Roger, myself via helicopter to the site.
Yeah.
And then after the concert, flew back to Long Beach and did our broadcast. And I have another funny story I'm going to share with you, just if I can. Maxie Priest was playing the country club in the Valley.
Yeah.
Right. And it was on the night of a Reggae Revolution show. So I said, I want to make a good impression on Maxie Priest. So I hired a limo, right, to pick him up. It was a brand spanking new limo. First time on the road. So
idea.
we go
To impress him.
we go. Yeah, we take it. I figure, got to make a good impression on him. So he's like, Roberto, boy, run things, swas. And I'm like, yes, Rasta, this is how we do it. So we go about 5 minutes on the highway and the blood clot thing breaks down.
Oh, no.
The thing breaks down the limo and he starts busting up and he goes, Roberto, give me a lemon limo, So to this day, I can talk to Maxie and just bust stuff. If I see him at the lemon limo, so the bust stuff. So I have to call AAA. I call up AAA because now I got to take my Crater Records, Maxie Priest, and me, and the driver to KROQ Studios in Burbank, Rasta, and we're all in the cab of this tow truck going to the station, towing a limo, You understand?
So funny. That's so good.
Unbelievable story,
That
man.
is so good.
Just like
Yeah.
I mean, there are some. I mean, I could tell you more, but
No,
I don't want to
would.
get off
I'm
track.
sure.
I just basically want to tell you.
So Roberto, you mentioned the Untouchables. So did the fans that would see some of the ska bands go to back then? We're talking. Let's talk 80s and maybe early 90s. How much crossover was there between the ska fans and reggae fans?
Well, I think there was a good. And let me just differentiate two things from you. Okay, reggae music, the derivative regal. Peter Tosh wanted me to know that reggae music was King's music, Selassie music. So if you're going to get a Rasta says reggae is Rasta music.
Yes.
You understand me? And you're not going to get a Rasta going to a ska show. Okay? I mean, a vintage ska, but third wave ska,
Right.
an untouchable show, you got to have a whole heap of herb before a Rasta's going to go to see that show. You know what I'm saying? And then you got your next school of thought, reggae. And you talk to Robin Campbell from Ali's brother.
Yep.
And he'll tell you that reggae is a dance music, and they grew up in Birmingham with all the Jamaicans who came over with the reggae and ska, the Windrush.
Yep.
They were listening at an early age and it was a dance music. So it's everyone's music. So if we can differentiate between those, then you get that crossover audience, because a ska lover loves to skank. Yeah. So he'll skank the reggae and he'll skank the ska music.
Yeah.
So that is where you're going to get that crossover appeal.
Right.
Interesting.
I love that. Yeah. Did you go to the On Club?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the On Club and maybe any other.
Well, you did the series at the Grammy, yes. And they could tell you more about that. Yeah, that whole thing. But basically, the Blue Rhythm Band,
yes,
played the On Club, right? And Rankin Roger came out to that show,
wow,
right? To check it. So, it's this, you had like Parr, the promoter there,
yeah.
Who he was from the UK and he got it.
Right.
Yes.
So he was light years ahead of the bonehead promoter mentality who couldn't think outside of the box.
Right.
You hear me?
Yeah.
So that's what I had to do. I had a toolbox and had to wear all these hats because nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
And I felt it was an obligation. I don't want to bait and switch, play artists on the radio that you can't see live. Yeah, so then I had an obligation and duty to bring them out.
Right.
And get them signed, recording contracts, and then do, live performances. But, at the end of the day, I can rest my head on my pillow every night, and I never ripped anybody off.
Right.
I gave the house away. It was never about money for me. Yeah. If I did tour deals and it was a situation where there wasn't a lot of money to be had, I gave all the money to the band. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, it was just like, we need each other. You know what I'm saying? And we've kind of lost that loving feeling now, and COVID has really screwed things up right now, where we can't even look at people in the eye anymore and say hello without them thinking that you're a child molester or, that you have ill will. I mean, we've lost all manners. Our kids are socially inept.
Yeah.
There's a big disconnect.
Yeah.
Our educational test scores have gone down the drain. video games have taken over the brain.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Violence is the
Interesting
order of the
points.
day.
Yeah,
That's
those are
all the
fascinating.
headlines. You know, this is reality. That's
Mm.
why we still speak from the heart. We speak the truth,
Yes.
Mhm.
you know? So, you know, I love what you guys are doing and keeping the burn, you know, the flame burning red
Yeah.
hot, you know, because I'm sitting back, I'm trying to reach a different audience right now. You know, I'm working with the Italian baseball
Yeah,
and
yeah, let's
softball
let's
federation.
talk about that.
But before I wanted to ask why you left after 3 o'clock reggae, you threw the towel in.
Rasta, how many times can you get that bad taste in your mouth for radio? You can always, the power of the pen, I could always go back to journalism
Mhm.
and make a living. I can write books. I can educate. I can teach kids English. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
And I
what
can
I'm
do
saying is, so after
broadcasting,
3 o'clock
once
reggae,
you
you
get
stopped
burned
knocking on
out,
doors. Huh?
yeah, once you get burned out, how many times does the radio station get heavy metal take over? You know what I mean? And then another Vietnamese little Saigon radio network. No, man, I'm not going to set myself up for disappointment anymore. You know, if somebody would have came to me from Sirius, you know, or whatever, and I, you know, do a satellite, I would have been all in. But you know what I mean? I never sold myself out.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a guy who lives, you know, and dies by my word. That's all I've got. I don't have a bag of money, but I do have my integrity and my word. And when I say I'm going to do something, I
Yeah.
freaking do it.
Yes.
But you
You
were
know?
definitely we miss you from the scene.
Well, give thanks.
Your
I
place.
miss the scene. You know what? It's not my choice. The scene has grown and blossomed.
Oh yes, yes.
And you
But
know
at
what I mean?
93
But
on.
when I go to the hot tub and I hear reggae music pounding and they're playing, you know,
My work was done.
Protege, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Damien Junior Gong. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, it's not like dibby reggae. You know, it's roots rock reggae, man. I'm all in.
Very,
You
very
know, and I'm like, okay, mission accomplished. I'm cool with that.
indeed.
I like your
You know?
outlook. I like that outlook.
Indeed, yes. So
So
baseball and your Italian connection. So talk about, 'cause you're very passionate.
yeah, well, basically in in 2017, I made a feature film called Italian American Baseball Family.
Wow.
It featured Tommy Lasorda, who lived in Fullerton at the time. I interviewed him a couple times.
Wow.
And after he passed away, I went to the mayor of Fullerton and I said, you know what? This was a legend living in your town. Let's have his legacy live on.
Mhm.
Let's strike a sister city relationship with Tolo, Italy, in Abruzzo, where his father and his grandfather was from. So I approached the mayor of Tolo in Abruzzo and I said, hey, we'd love to strike a sister city relationship in honor of the Lasorda family with Fullerton, California. And they're like, what? Roberto, look at piccola città. Tolo's like 1,000 population. You know, like what do you want to do with a little hilltop town? But this has blossomed. We had our 3rd annual Tommy Lasorda Day. It's
Wow.
September 22nd, Tommy Lasorda's birthday in Fullerton. Every September 22nd, we have a big celebration. And we have this sister city relationship. So what I've been able to do is I've been able to bring students from Fullerton, Cal State Fullerton, and Fullerton College, and high school students from Fullerton High School, and bring them to Italy where they can study.
Wow.
And also athletes from Italy, from Tolo and Abruzzo region, coming to study in Fullerton and
Nice.
play baseball or softball. So we have cultural exchanges, art exchanges,
Very important.
and all these other things. I'm bringing a group of 30 city officials to Italy for a grand tour of Italy in October. And we're going to Rome, we're going to Florence, we're going to Assisi, we're going to Tolo. It's going to be like a parade.
Sounds,
Yeah.
sounds miserable.
There, you know? So I'm the international ambassador between Tolo and Fullerton.
Nice.
So getting back to the movie, it won the National Italian American Foundation,
Oh,
the NIAF Film Forum Award. And
thank God
that
for the
was
one.
voted
Thank God.
by,
Is that what's right?
yes, let me grab it. Let me grab it. The
Please,
Russo brothers, who did the Avengers series, they sponsored it. And they were the judges on the film.
Yeah.
So I was a film major at the Claremont colleges,
Well, you got
and this is-
sidetracked by reggae.
That's
right?
cool.
So, and the thing is, now this, you know, planted the seed for other films. So, the story of Italian American family is how Italians assimilated into American popular culture through the game of baseball,
Mhm.
and how Italian Americans circled back to Italy to help grow the game by playing in the Olympics and in the World Baseball Classic.
Right.
So I go back into the late 1800s when, you know, Italians were considered black because the Sicilians were very dark skinned and they worked the worst jobs like the blacks in New Orleans. And in the early 1890s, there were a bunch of Italians lynched for a crime they were never accused of,
Wow.
right? And you ever heard of Sacco and Vicente?
Vicente?
They were,
Yeah.
right? They were also accused of murder. So Italians were branded, you know, as second-class citizens. So I talk about the discriminatory practices that were taking place, how Italians were called Dagos and Wops, and all these cartoons were made of Italians, and how people like Joe DiMaggio legitimized Italians, and how Italians became Americans through the game of baseball. So this film, the National Baseball Hall of Fame archives have asked me to house the film there for generations to learn, because this film is a socio-economical, cultural film. You don't have to be a lover of baseball to appreciate the game. It talks about the immigration, you know, and that's it. My mother and father immigrated from Italy and left everything behind so that I could have a future in this country. And God blessed me with reggae music. And at 17 years of age, I was able to play reggae music on the radio. How many countries can a 17-year-old get on the radio and play rebel music?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So blessed that I landed, you know, there. And then people caught on to it. And, you know, I was just the chosen one, man. And I just feel so blessed.
You
to
had
have
the
had
entire
opportunity.
Inland Empire in parts of Los Angeles listening.
Yeah.
You know, Brethren? And so what I'm
Riverside,
saying to you guys
Corona.
is like,
There were a
okay,
lot.
you know, the Kali Reggae crew, they're not going to know, you know, the foundation, but maybe one day they'll watch this podcast and then they'll look back and do their research and dig deeper and find, you know, the roots of ska and reggae music.
Yeah.
Here in
You know?
Southern California.
I mean, Roberto, the music, you know, I heard so much from you and Reggae Revolution, and I'm really bummed that I did not, unfortunately, because I was going to college and had classes, so I only a handful of times was able to listen to you and Junior at 3 o'clock, and so bummed. But
But I should also point out that you were really playing hardcore reggae
yes,
at the time.
For real.
Ultra,
Yeah.
Mighty
It really,
Diamond,
the beauty of it
But
is that, you know,
not
I didn't have a
watered
lot of
down, not
commercials.
compromised, but
I
hard.
did not have a lot of commercials, and I never playlisted things. It was just a vibe. And then I would like just go on some certain themes and just go with it. But I was educated by the Roger Stephens and the Hank Combs and the Chuck Fosters and the Miss Wireways, because they had a catalog of music that I wasn't privy to. But I had an obligation to play this music that wasn't being played, because I didn't want to play what they were playing. I wanted to reach a new dimension, you know, in the hype. And you know what's so funny is things come back full circle.
True.
So, you know, here COVID came, and, you know, there was this money that came through, you know, that came to everybody. And I'm like, I knew that artists were really hurting at the time because they couldn't do live concerts.
Right.
So I gave all my COVID money to Pato. And I said, Pato, listen, I want to rewrite 5 of your tunes, 5 of your most popular tunes. And I'm going to tell the story of Mike Piazza, his history as becoming a Dodger and a Hall of Famer. And he became the Team Italy manager. So I made a film called Introducing Team Italy manager Mike Piazza, which debuted at the Italian American Athletic Club in San Francisco. And what I did is I sponsored 15 players from Italy to come play, all college age, to play San Francisco State, University of San Francisco, San Jose State, College of Holy Names, and Sonoma State University. Wow. I set up an exhibition series, and I took the best prospects from Italy, because these kids were looking for scholarships as part of my sister city exchange. So I brought them over, and one of the kids got a scholarship through Sonoma State. Nice. And he actually graduated with honors at Sonoma State, and he was all league, and he led the league like in RBI and home runs his senior year. That just came like in the last 2 weeks. This was revealed. You know what I mean?
What has become of the songs that you
Well, basically what I did is every night I went on a creative spurt, and I like Pato did a big tune. If you look on YouTube, you'll see a tune called Go Pato.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
Go Pato is millions of hits. In South America, it's massive, right?
Yep.
So what I did is I took that tune, and I in that tune, he mentions all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and Mexico.
Okay.
And what I did is I took the 50 most populated cities in Italy and the Vatican and San Marino, and rewrote that tune. So Pato had to learn how to pronounce 50 cities. And so what I did is I sent out to all the cities in Italy this song. Instead of Go Pato, it's called Go Mike Go, right? And because Mike is our, you know, our manager for Team Italy.
Right.
So you'll hear it at Italian baseball games during intermissions. You'll hear it from ICE. All these it's called baseball reggae.
Right.
And all these tunes, all these are Pato tunes. Like Don't Worry Your Mind, you know, big Pato tunes. And Pato's like, he was tripping because I had to match the delivery and cadence of the original song.
Yeah,
I
that's
wrote
not easy.
lyrics. So, and so I did it in 5 nights, 5 consecutive nights. And he was like blown away because I was like on a creative spurt because this is during COVID, during
Yeah.
lockdown,
Right.
right? And Pato's like, you've done such a great job on this. So I'm going to record. So this movie soundtrack will live in the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With the
Yes.
movie. So I'm embarking on
Super
other
creative and cool.
Yes.
projects, documentary. It's just a matter of having resources. So if I could get some grant money,
Sure.
then I could do it because I can't really play with my rent money to make movies.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
but basically, I'd love us to do, a documentary on the LA reggae and ska movement. I'd love to collaborate with you guys.
Yeah. Let's.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should definitely talk
Yeah.
more. And obviously we can go on and on, Roberto, and
But I also like the fact that you mentioned that you can walk away with pride and dignity and say, I did not
Indeed.
sell my soul. I think that's what I gather from this, above and beyond all of the things that you have said so far, that you walk away feeling satisfied and filled.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a granddaughter who's 14 and I love her, and I want her to be proud of her nonno, her grandpa,
Right.
and I have a bunch of cassettes. Miguel's like, Roberto, you need to, digitalize these and have a presence, for Reggae Revolution. And I'm saying, bro, let me get into retirement when I have some time on my hands,
Right.
because I still have all my record collection, and all my cassettes, and I think there could be a story there because
Right.
that's Miguel's like, Roberto, you need to tell your story, in a book or in
Yeah.
in a movie.
So this is
format.
this is a good start.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely,
Yes.
So I just
any
give
closing
thanks
thoughts
for you
before we put
guys
this stopper on?
allowing me to reminisce with
Yes,
you.
man.
This is
Any closing thoughts?
great, Roberto.
Well, all respect due to you guys for being pioneers and just, reaching the masses with the platform because you're doing it because you love it and you have the same integrity and values that I possess.
Are
And
you
that's
saying
why
I'm
we
not-
get
you're
along,
saying I'm not
you
getting rich?
know.
I'm not getting rich doing this?
But at the end of the day, Junior, you're a family man. Your legacy, you know what I mean, is prized. You could talk to people like Bread and Pipe, and they have enough love, Wailing Souls Massive, for you because when they were down on their knees, having a rough time, in America, you were always there to say, no, man, keep your chin up. And look what happened. Tunes like Shark Attack, you know what I mean? Resurrected that, career. Even, Pawn Shop,
Yes.
given interest in War Around the John Shop,
Right.
and Roots Radix. I used to play that tune, 12-inch green sleeves, dub version. I mean, that was as hardical as there could be. That gives chills up and down my spine when you can hear Flaba in Style Scott just holding it down.
It's so true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa,
Yes.
that real reggae music,
Yes. Yes.
and Fully Fullwood, enough respect to my brethren, Fully Fullwood, Jack Miller, Reggae All-Stars, another foundation reggae band who helped build a club scene, a vibrant Orange County
Right.
scene back in the day.
There's
You
also
know,
another
and
band
he's-
that I think we should mention, and one of the guys moved to Hawaii. I forget the name of the band, but they used to come.
Jack Miller.
No, it's Jack Miller. He just mentioned.
That's
Right.
Jack Miller. Yeah.
No,
You're thinking someone else.
yes, there was another band.
Okay.
But they used to come week after week. Used to play the pizza shop in Long Beach. Volunteer their time. I didn't know you were able to, I guess, make these guys give up their time, drive their equipment, because we were doing 3 o'clock reggae. Gave up their time week after week. I soldiers, I think.
Oh, I Soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mikey. And,
Man, yeah, man, yeah,
Yeah.
man. Every week after week.
Right. And Judah, who's now up in Syracuse,
Yes.
Yeah.
taking it down.
Yeah, no, I
Radio
Soldiers.
show.
I Soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love
Yeah,
But nothing.
absolutely.
Russ.
You know, that's what I'm saying. There's
Right.
just not enough time to really pay tribute to
No,
those
I
who
know.
have gone
I know.
to rest.
True.
You know,
But
it just
Roberto,
allowed us.
you were always so supportive and encouraging when Reggae Nucleus was around, and I do thank you for that as well. So and I also remember when Junior and I were starting this podcast series, when we did the Instagram Live, you were one of the first to listen to that. So always been amazing and a pioneer indeed, Roberto.
And if
Yeah,
I'm
well,
not mistaken, you probably have enough articles in Main Street to put
Yes.
together. Perhaps
right, exactly. That was also very instrumental
Something
in
to
breaking
talk about.
ground,
Yeah,
because that was a kind of a punk,
Yeah.
alternative
Right.
that was
magazine.
Yeah.
And then I had the reggae column in there. So
Right.
that really, what I did is I just basically transcribed my interviews that I did on the radio and
Right.
put them in printed form so that people could,
Right.
see the message
Yeah.
yes.
that has been conveyed. But people like Haile Mastel, Arians, you know what I mean? Those guys came out to Santa Cruz, and then they came down to Southern California, and Ross Michael hung out, Big Dread and, Waddy Gad, all them and them,
Right.
So
Yeah.
we could just go down the list,
I know. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Junior, I don't want to say final thoughts. I just want to say to be continued.
There we
Because
go.
I'd really
go.
like to
Right.
bring on Miguel and Pato,
Exactly.
if
Yes.
I could.
We'll do a
And,
part.
and
We'll
let
do a
them
part two.
elaborate on the story.
We'll do a part 2. Yeah.
Well, want to say thanks to everyone for their support. Thanks for taking time out of your evening or your night, as the case may be.
Yes.
Hope we didn't bore you. So many other things you could be doing with your precious time. So really and truly want to thank you. And I want
Yes, and thank you, Junior. And
Yes.
just one final note. If people are interested in the World Baseball Classic, it's happening again. And Team Italy will be there with Mike Piazza as our manager. And if you care to follow Team Italy baseball and softball, because there's a lot of Italian Americans who play for universities here who also suit up for Team Italy abroad.
Okay.
You can check out my articles at www.fibs.it. And then up in the right-hand corner, you can click on EN for English, and then you'll see all of the articles that I translate from Italian into English. And then I write original content in English that is translated into Italian.
Wow.
So you can follow my writing. I do that every week. I'm
Wow.
writing articles all the time.
Keep him busy.
FIBS.IT. And then it's /EN for the English, or you can just go to FIBS.IT and then click on the right for the EN instead of IT. And then you'll see all my articles. And I'll be in Europe this summer covering Team Italy. There, I was in Japan with Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic in Taiwan. We came in, we had Otani pitch against us. It was the highest viewed broadcast in history on Japanese television. So you'll see me on the field interviewing the players before the games. And then, I'll get press passes and, like I got on Dodger Stadium when at the last World Baseball Classic
Yes.
when it was at Dodger Stadium. And they're like, "Where's Team Italy?" I'm like, "Hey man, I got a credential. It doesn't matter.
There
We'll
we
be here
go.
next time."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Keep
So
it up.
yeah,
Keep
but
it
I
up.
love baseball. I love reggae, and it goes back to KSPC when I used to do play-by-play on the space. You know,
wonderful.
covering the Pomona Pittsburgh baseball games.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it all comes back full
But
circle.
it-
So
it's good that
you'll
you have
catch me
gone
on
away at the
YouTube
dinosaur.
too.
You're still out there working. You know,
That's
and
right.
so we,
For real. Yeah. And we do
Yes, ma'am.
live broadcasts on
Yes.
YouTube. So you'll see me doing play-by-play
Wonderful.
of Team Italy baseball and softball games as
Yeah.
well.
And I must
So-
admit that I did learn quite a bit from you when we were doing that 3 o'clock reggae. Above and beyond other things, you memorize all the clubs. So whenever we were doing the calendar, you had all the clubs, the Roxy, the Gold,
The whiskey.
Locked
That's
in your
it,
memory.
man. That's what really did, because these were rock clubs, and we'd have to bring in reggae engineers because
Locked
their
in your
engineers
memory,
didn't know how
bro.
to mix reggae bands.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
But anyway, guys, I don't want to go further
No,
than we
Roberto,
already
thank you
thanks,
so
thanks.
much.
Right.
And Junior, thank you for everything.
Yes, and let me remind our fans, please subscribe to this podcast series on our YouTube channel. Follow at History of LA Ska on Instagram and join our Facebook group. This entire series is produced by Rockery Radio by my good friend here again, Eric Kohler.
And I just want to encourage everyone to please do your part to celebrate and preserve the scene. And I'll leave you with, come out and put on your dancing shoes and enjoy yourself. And much love and be well, Roberto. We'll see you
Yeah,
soon.
Give thanks, brethren. Got
Yeah,
respect.
Yeah, man,
Big up.
you're glad we
Keep
reconnected
it up.
after many
Indeed.
years.
Yes,
eh?
I. More
Thank you,
time
everyone.
here.
Yes, man.
Irie.
All right.
Peace out.
Everyone, thanks. for your
Niceness.
support. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Yes, I.
All
Give
right.
thanks.